forgot to record an intro while in costume. So this is what you're getting. Before I start talking a whole lot, I do want to say I have a little bit of a sore throat today, so I'm sorry if I sound completely horrendous, but it happens. So it's allergy season, and yeah, just a little fair warning for you. So anyway, this costume was really easy to make. I pretty much just made the shirt and then cut up some jeans. For the claw, the fishnets, and the fedora, I pretty much just got those at Spirit Halloween. I believe I got all three at Spirit Halloween, and they don't cost that much, so you can make them if you want to. There's plenty of tutorials on how to make claws and stuff. You can look it up by name and find a Freddy Krueger claw tutorial if you want to, but it was like 12 bucks, so that's what I did. Mine is kind of, it came just like this, and I'll probably eventually go back and put more detailing to the brown part just to make it look a little bit more realistic. But as of right now, I think it looks fine and serves its purpose. Same with the fedora. It's just a brown fedora that I got at Spirit, and I may go back and add burn marks to it with some black paint or black chalk or something. I have not decided on that yet, but if I do, I'll post it, so you'll be the first to know. As for the pants, I just used some old skinny jeans, but I'll talk more about that later. And then the shirt was probably the most difficult part because I did make that by hand. And it still wasn't that difficult. Pretty easy costume, pretty quick to make. The longest time spent was probably just waiting for the dye to set in. I did end up dyeing it twice and have yet to rinse it for the second time. It's been sitting for a few days and I ironed it in and everything, but I'm nervous that it's not going to look the same whenever I rinse it out, so if it doesn't, I'm going to have to dye it a third time, but since I am wearing this costume for Halloween, I kind of don't want to deal with it right now. So I didn't rinse it out. After I took it off, my body was stained. So if you do that, you've been warned. So all that being said, let's get on with the video. Somehow I misplaced the footage of me cutting up pants, but you know, it's really not hard to alter pants. So we're just going to start it right off here with Crafty Cat, and I have my, what's it called, fabric, there you go. I have that folded in two, and I'm just taking a top that is similar to the look that I want to have for my costume top, and I'm going to trace that, and that'll give me two equal pieces that I can later on sew together. Once I had it all traced out, I started to pin it down. I don't know why it was so hard for me to get the fabric to lay flat, but for some reason it was, so I just laid it flat as I was pinning. Also, if you're doing this on carpet, be careful not to pin your carpet to your fabric because that's a pain in the butt to deal with later on. Once you've got it all pinned together, just cut that dude out. One thing when you're cutting, make sure you leave a little bit of space so that you have some seam allowance, and then whenever you're sewing it together, you can just sew it together on the line that you traced. And just because I'm pretty sure y'all don't need 10 minutes of me sewing, we're gonna go ahead and fast forward to the dyeing part. So I know it's kind of difficult to see because it was awkward recording, but basically what I'm doing is I'm just duct taping stripes onto the shirt. This is going to keep the dye from going too completely haywire and will also make sure that you get equal spacing between each stripe. I did end up having to put the shirt on the floor so that I could get a little bit better of a pattern going. Basically what I did for the top stripe, as you can see here, is I just connected one long piece of tape across the top and connected the two top sleeve stripes. Since I don't have separate sleeves, it was kind of difficult to dictate where the stripes should change direction, so I found that this was the easiest way to decide that. Once I had it all duct taped, I just took my dye and I used the RIT dye that you can get at craft stores or at Walmart or probably quite a few other places, honestly. But I took that with a sponge brush and I didn't mix it with hot water or anything like that, just because since I was going in with stripes and an actual pattern, there was no easy way for me to kind of dictate where the dye was going to go and what temperature it was at, which is why I've had to dye it multiple times. So the longer you let the dye sit, obviously the more the stain is going to hold, because that's just how life works. So that's why I let it sit for as long as I did, and why after dyeing it the second time I have let it sit for as long as it has, so that way maybe it'll dye a little bit better and I won't have to dye it a third time. So once I finished with the dark red, I let it sit overnight, and then went back with my iron and added a little bit of steam to it. This was kind of my way of getting it up to the boiling water that it's supposed to sit in to dye, but as I said, it didn't dye exactly like I planned for it to, so I did go back after the second time and ironed the entire thing. After going over it really well with the steamer, I started to remove the duct tape. As you can see, the duct tape pretty much just keeps really nice, clean edges on the stripes, and there's the back of my head. And yeah, once you get all the duct tape off, it should start looking like a little candy cane type of shirt, like Christmas, but it's not. I swear it's not. The fact that it's green isn't really helping my case, but you know what? Whatever. What you're going to do after you finish all of that fun stuff is you're just going to go in with your dark green dye and do the exact same thing, except now you don't need to have the duct tape, because once the red dye has all dried, if any green gets on it, it will go ahead and block it out, if that makes any sense. The stripes came out being really clean, even though I did spill a little bit of dye in a couple of places and had some drips and such like that. That didn't make any sense, but you know what I mean. As you can see, I'm not wearing gloves, and this is a mistake because it will stain your hands for many a days, and you'll look like you just murdered somebody because you have dark red all over you and dark green all over you, which Lord knows what that would come from, but look, it's not a good look. Once you're all done with that, you're going to go in and steam that. I don't know why I was holding it instead of hanging it up. That's kind of dumb because you can really severely burn yourself, so probably just hang it up instead of holding it. I then let that sit overnight again and came back the next day and rinsed it out. The water looks really black here, but in person it looked so much cooler, so, you know, just gonna say that. One thing I will say is that, as you can see, there's some red in the back of the bathtub there, just from me, you know, splashing water and dye and everything all over the place. It didn't really stain my shower though. Of course, I did have a towel down just to be sure it wouldn't stain the shower or the floor or anything, so extra precautions. So this is after having rinsed it. It's still wet because usually I would say throw it in the dryer, but we don't have a washer and dryer yet. So it's still wet. I'm going to let it hang out to dry, and then we'll come back to it later and see what the final product looks like. Day 2 of recording, because I forgot to record an intro or an outro. Now I just bumped my desk, so now you're all wobbly. Ha! You're also closer to me today. Hi, how are you? So we technically still don't know what the final product looks like because, like I said, I did go back and dye it a second time. After it dried, it was too light for my liking, so I went back and dyed it a second time and then let it sit for 24 hours and then went back and ironed it instead of steaming it so that it was a little bit more of a direct heat, because in my mind, that'll make the dye set in better. Is that true? I guess we'll find out. It's also been sitting for a few days now, and I still have not rinsed it out because I'm scared that I'm gonna have to dye it for a third time to get it to look the way that I want it to. So as of right now, I'm pretty satisfied with the way it looks for the most part, so I'm just gonna leave it until after Halloween and then see where I need to go from there. I will say once again that if you do put it on without rinsing it, the dye will probably transfer. Whenever I put it on to shoot the beginning clip of this video, my armpits were bright red and green, so that was fun to get off. I also apologize again for the lighting. I'm still working on getting equipment and stuff. I don't have my blackout curtains up yet because my curtain rod was too short from the other apartment, so I do still need to get a new curtain rod and probably some new curtains as well because they may not be long enough, but we'll see. So my lighting is still a little wonky, and also I usually film at night anyway, so it's usually not that much of a problem. But anyway, that's all I have for you for this video. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. If you want to share this video, feel free to. I'm not opposed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one where hopefully I don't sound like a bunch of gremlins are attacking my esophagus.